Awake and Pretty Much Sober with Violence and Monica Martin. It's just a really beautiful, cool, I don't know what the right word is, because it's a little funky and sensual, but it's, laid back at the same time. Like how you found that balance is really interesting, and it's sort of been your deal this whole time, right?
Yeah, so I used to write and record music under my own name, Jeremy Larson, and then I had always prided myself in doing, writing all the songs, singing all the songs, and playing all the instruments. And, it got to a point where I kind of felt like me being the singer in my own band was probably holding back the songs and music, like a director that has decided they also need to star as the lead role in all their movies. It's not always actually it doesn't serve the art the way that it should sometimes. So I think I had jokingly put on Twitter, like, what would you guys think if the next Jeremy Larson release had a different singer on it? And to my surprise, everyone was like, yeah, you should totally do that.
Thanks for the vote of confidence, guys.
Yeah, it wasn't the easiest thing to hear, but it was a pretty pivotal thing for me because that kind of changed everything. So I had the idea that moving forward, I was going to try and do a series of EPs, and that each one would have a different singer on it. And to put just a twist on it, I thought it'd be cool just to do all female singers. And so what I liked about the idea, even if it wasn't the best for like marketing and whatnot, what I liked about it was that I think that musicians tend to box ourselves in once you create a name for your band or the project. And, before you have a name or before you have an idea and you're just creating for the sake of creating, there's kind of no limits on what you can do. And then you make a name for your band and you release an album, and then you start feeling somewhat confined by what you did last and wanting to top it and whatnot. And so I didn't necessarily want to just make a new name for my band every album that I did, but I felt like changing the singer would loosen the expectations on myself, as well as possibly for listeners. They would know that every release that I did might be drastically different than the one before it. And so I was just trying to create some elbow room for myself to make sure that the writing never got stale.
What a creative way to do that. I don't think enough people put that kind of thought into it to be able to get there. But you're right. It really does, because as far as the expectation goes, that you've completely accomplished that.
Well, and I have other things ways of making money. My job is that I write string arrangements for people. And so I don't mind having that separation where the thing that I'm proud of, the thing that I'm really creative with, doesn't make money. Mm-hmm. And so, in fact, I've tried to go out of my way to keep those things very separate. So, like I said, it may not be best for marketing and whatnot, because people might get attached to, like with this release, I think a lot of people will be very attached to Monica, being the voice of Violence. Even though I've done other releases with other singers, this one is kind of getting the most traction so far, and working with the label has helped with that. But I know that there's a lot of people that whoever I work with next, they will be disappointed, just because, they got very attached to the collaboration between Monica and I.
It's worth the gamble, though, just to kind of keep it interesting for yourself.
Yeah, and to be honest, Monica is working on a solo record of her own, and I think that she is a songwriter, and she's very, very talented. And so I don't necessarily want her to just be like the singer in my band. I don't think that's what's best for her, because she's too talented for that, and she has her own ideas and everything. And so, yeah, even if she wanted to do another one, I would feel a little bit bad taking up the good chunk of her next year, because I really think that she needs to be writing it, and she is right now.
Yeah. For you all working together, I'm curious how much of it is a collaboration versus just you bringing her in to do the parts that you're writing? Because I know that you do basically all the musical bits. Does that include the lyrics and writing the melodies as well, or do you give that to the singer?
I write all of that, and I usually even make like a demo of me like singing the songs. But there's just so much more that goes into it. Like, if you want to think of it like I'm writing a script and she's kind of acting it out, that I think is an accurate way of kind of thinking about the importance of the delivery
Mm-hmm.
of the words and everything. And Monica is one of the most emotive people that I've ever known, one of the most emotive singers I've ever known. And with her, she really, really genuinely feels music more deeply than almost anyone I've ever met. And the first time we ever got together, I think I can say this because she said it in a different interview, but the first time we ever got together and started talking about the lyrics for one of the first songs we were recording, she just started crying. And we didn't even really know each other, but she felt the music and the lyrics really deeply, and that wasn't because I'm just such an amazing songwriter. It's because she just feels things in a way that a lot of people don't, and it comes through in her vocal performances. I think that's part of the magic of the collaboration, is that she can just so quickly get into character, if you want to think of it that way, and just really, really deliver a powerful performance. If anyone was ever to hear like my old demos of me singing the songs, you would have a hard time seeing how she had the vision and the imagination to really bring it to life in the way that she did.
It's really interesting that you keep going back to sort of the movie metaphor in directing and all that too, because there is something very, I'm sorry, I'm going to use that journalist word of cinematic about it, but it's almost like a very classic thing. Like there is a classic sound that happens when the two of you work together. I find it all over the album. I really centered in on that song "How It Left," especially. Like I don't know what era it's calling back to, but there's something in that song, even more specifically to me than the other ones, that just kind of pulls me back to another age.
That was one of the first songs we worked on, and I know I can't really show you over the phone, but that one is also probably wins the award for most improved from before and after between my demo and her performance. She added some very technical things into the chorus, which is not easy to sing. See, with me, when I'm recording it, I just record it like lower in my range, and then eventually, I just edit it and pitch shift it up to a key that I think is going to work for her. I usually do just one take, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. And so, what she gets is almost like something being played on a MIDI keyboard. Mm-hmm. It's very rigid, and she totally knocked that one out of the park.
And to go further along, I've heard you talk about sort of the theme that kind of plays throughout this, like the relationships theme, but it more than just a love story. You kind of have gone through the entire story that people sometimes go through, which I was thinking most of those don't have happy endings.
I don't know. I think that I write songs a lot of times to try to teach myself life lessons. I don't think I'm trying to teach anyone else anything, profound, but I write to try to inform my own life and my own marriage, my own relationships, and understand them better. And I think there was a lot of discovery for me that happened in writing this album. The biggest takeaway for me that I just kind of carry with me every day in my own marriage is that, if you've been in a long-term relationship, that there's times where it just feels like you're living with someone and you're in opposite corners, and it's like a battle sometimes rather than having an ally. It feels like you're living with some kind of opponent. And the thing that I've realized is that is never the case. The reality of the situation is that you are always battling between selfishness and selflessness, and that is the battle that you're fighting. You're not fighting your spouse. You're fighting your own selfish tendencies and your desire to have everything your way. And I think that's something that I don't know if it comes through in the album or not, but it's kind of this overarching principle that has become really evident to me in the songwriting process, is that basic principle of not fighting each other, but fighting really just selfishness.
Let's turn our attention quickly to the other part. Earlier in the interview, you mentioned your other form of making money, which is string arrangements, and that's brought up this really interesting project that you've been a part of, which is working on Prince songs. What's the story on this? How did you end up working on these Deliverance tracks?
So there are some friends of mine that have like a management label kind of project called RMA, and I've done. I mean, honestly, I've probably done hundreds of string arrangements related to their different artists. So they were kind of partnering up with this guy Ian, who had been writing some songs with Prince. My understanding is that this would be between 2006 and 2008, and they it was pretty crazy because I wasn't allowed to even know about the project without signing a pretty hefty non-disclosure agreement, and so they had sent me this NDA that I looked over and had to have a lawyer look over, and there was all this back and forth about it before I even knew what it was. So when they finally told me who the artist was, I was instantly floored and terrified because I think that people misuse and abuse the word humbled all the time. I think people, they win an award and they say, "Oh, I'm so humbled by it," and what they mean is the opposite. They mean they feel awesome in the moment, but I felt terrified. I was very afraid, and in the literal sense of the word, I was humbled because I felt like the task was so much bigger than me, and I didn't want to break it, like the music. I felt like it was this gift, just to be able to get to hear it, this thing that no one else had really gotten to even listen to. So immediately I had a lot of questions, and my manager had a lot of questions, like, is this being done? I don't want to be a part of some rogue Prince release that's like not, sanctioned. And obviously that point is one that gets into legal territory where there's a lot of dispute right now. And obviously I don't really know and can't comment about that part of it. But, in their eyes, this was all completely above board, and they assured me that everything was sewn up real tight. So they went ahead and sent me the 2 songs, because there's Deliverance, which I know you've already heard, and then there was another like 9.5-minute piece that was called the Man Opera that was split into 4 movements. And it's just this big, epic piece of work. It's incredible. I mean, I know it's probably cruel to be talking about it when no one can listen to it, but it's kind of like this doxology, but kind of sexy kind of thing that has, obviously like a religious message to it, and stylistically, I think that people, if and when they hear it, would probably make parallels to, Brian Wilson's Smile, or certain maybe Song Cycle, Van Dyke Parks. It's very, very creative, very interesting. And I was kind of hired to take some keyboard parts that Prince had written and make it into orchestration. So that actually helped a little bit with me feeling so intimidated, was that he seemed to have an outline of what he wanted done. And so that simplified things, like, okay, I see what he was going for. I just have to, make the best version of that I can with strings.
So suddenly he writes the script and you get to be the actor.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. And he had filled in a lot of it where you could kind of hear, what he was hearing. It's a surreal thing getting to solo Prince's keyboard tracks and listen to his ideas. You kind of, when you have a creative genius like that, it just kind of flows out of them, even in rough sketches, even in the gaps between the notes, you just hear genius. And it was really amazing to get to listen to it. I really have no idea what's going to happen, if it's going to get released or not. I think that, in a lot of ways, it makes sense that with any posthumous release of a great artist, there's going to be a lot of debate over what gets released, how it gets released, when it gets released. And obviously, I think that debate is a really good thing, since the artist can't speak for themselves. I think that the vetting process is an important one.
Well, I love what I've heard that you've done on there. I mean, you definitely, obviously I didn't hear what he had laid down with those demos, but, it sounds fantastic. The sound of the songs are huge, and they're so good. To be a part of that, I understand what you're saying, too. It's what an incredible opportunity that few people on this earth have ever had.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know what's going to happen, but at the end of the day, I'm just so grateful. I'm really, really grateful that I was included in getting to hear the tracks, and hopefully whatever Prince's will for these songs is, whatever that is, hopefully that is what ends up happening.
I hope so as well. Beyond that, congratulations on the album too, Awake and Pretty Much Sober. It's a great title.
Thank you.
And this record, I do love it. And thanks so much for taking this time to do an interview today.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you calling. It was good to talk to you.
Yeah, you too. You're down in Nashville, is that right?
Yeah, I'm on the north side of Nashville. Yeah. And you're out of Kentucky?
Yeah, we're just up in Louisville, so we're right up the road from you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, if you're ever in the area, make sure you stop by.
Yeah, we haven't been there in a while, but yeah, I would love to pop in whenever we're passing through.
Well, take care, and we'll see you around at some point.
Okay, thanks, man.
All right, bye.